10 to 1 for the cross country. Is Gars alive? I'm a little bit concerned. I don't think he'll be running either. Now we get into a few good ones.
What a weekend. What a weekend of racing. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV. How good was that? How good was it, Andrew? You were there.
Yeah, it was a brilliant couple of days racing. 8 grade ones, obviously some tasty handicaps, some fantastic memories being made, and obviously a great night on Saturday night as well. Shame you weren't over, Josh. We had a lot of people coming up to me asking for you, Let's Talk Racing viewers and stuff like that, which was great to see. Really appreciated anyone that did come up, but you were a missed man this weekend.
Looking at Ryanair, refreshing late night flight on the Saturday, but I was so tempted to fly late on Saturday and get the red-eye flight at 6:30 back for the 11 o'clock start at work the next day. It was such like a FOMO moment where I was like, I just wish I was there. I can't believe I'm not. But it's brilliant watching the racing anyway. And in this video we are going to review the Dublin Racing Festival, all of the main talking points, as well as answer some questions that you sent over very kindly on Twitter. And it's our final Cheltenham Ante Post video. The series we started back in April comes to a close now in February. It won't really feel like Ante Post in the coming weeks because we're only weeks away from the Cheltenham Festival, and there'll be a couple of videos a week focusing on different divisions, handicaps, as well as each day. So exciting. This is my favourite part of the year by a country mile. I'd swap my Christmas, my birthday from one day of the Cheltenham Festival in a heartbeat. I also want to say a big thank you. We sold plenty of the LTR caps. It's great that you've all got involved. Still got a couple left, so do get those while they still last, and once they are gone, they are gone. But thank you very much for the support on that one. And if you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. We hit 13,000 subscribers over the weekend, and the last video went down a storm, so thank you very much for that, and let's crack on into the video. So I think it's important starting with our best bets. Gallant John Joe, you felt quite hard done by his performance at Leopardstown.
It was a shame because everyone had kind of bought into it. I don't know how I'd convinced so many people to actually back this horse, but he got badly hampered by a loose horse down the back when he was in a good position. He's ended up storming home for 4th. The winners won snug, so very hard to say he would have definitely won, but he's certainly a horse that has a big handicap in him off that type of mark of 142. I doubt he'd be changed for that, but no, if he had won, it would have been carnage. I'd actually orchestrated people to turn up at the parade ring if he had won, so we could do a big 3 cheers like they do for the good horses at Cheltenham, but it wasn't quite to be. But unfortunately, thinking of things that weren't quite to be, 20 to 1 for yourself, right place, right time. 7 to 2 SP, Rachel Blackmore, a length and a half clear at the last as well. You must have thought the money was in the back pocket.
It was painful. Declared for the race that I thought he'd run in, then opened up, I think still 16 to 1, 7 to 1 in the morning, 7 to 2 on the off, and I thought, oh, here we go, I'm on the right horse. Rachel Blackmore took him out wide for virtually the whole race, and I think she knew that she was on a very good horse, or a horse that was well in at the last hurdle. As you say, length and a half clear. I was already looking at trips to Dublin, trips abroad, and then when your good time Johnny went past, and I remembered that you fancied him, and I saw you put him up. It was brutal. It was a horrible one. Yeah,
it was good though for Tony Martin. Good for him to get back into the winner's enclosure, and obviously these owners known for Beneficent a few years ago. It's been a long time between drinks for good horses for them, but they certainly gave it plenty in the parade ring afterwards. They won obviously 60 grand to the winner. And they were saying on the big interview there that they were going to have a very good night. So I didn't see where they ended up, but I'm sure they had a very fruitful Saturday evening.
It was painful for me, good for you, but there was also some positives. Party Central won the other best bet. Copper Cove wasn't declared, we never got a price on him. Also, Call Me Lyrene at 33 to 1. Davy Russell, Gordon Elliott, that was so good. Gordon Elliott and Davy Russell should never be 33 to 1 in any handicap at any festival. That combination is deadly, and I was surprised that he was still that price, but he's backed into about 18 to 1. But let's focus then on some of the big talking points, and I think the first one is the first race, the 2 mile 6 novice hurdle, won by Minella Cocooner under a very good ride, maybe was overlooked. That being said, I think the jockeys may have got it wrong in behind him, and it was the first race of the festival. They weren't 100% sure how Leopardstown would ride. I'm not 100% sure how that form will stand up moving forward. Willie Mullins said that Minella Cocooner go up and trip for the Albert Bartlett most likely. Minella Cocooner was a very eye-catching second. I thought Freedom to Dream ran well, and now for the likes of Grand Jury and Eric Bloodaxe, I'd probably see maybe a Martin Pipe or a Bartlett being a possibility, but they're going to have to really step up from that. What did you make of the winner, and can you see him winning at the Cheltenham Festival?
You could see him running well. He's an unexposed horse. You probably haven't seen the best of him yet. I'd be a little bit like you, Josh. I think I came away from it a little bit unsatisfied almost by the race. I think we've seen it time and time again. Danny Mullins on these front runners, he's such a good judge of pace. He dictates. He had them all stacked up behind him heading to 2 out, and then he sprinted clear again. Minella Cocooner's probably the one to take out of it. I know everyone's saying that in second. A bad mistake at 2 out. His jumping needs to get a lot better though if you're actually going to win the Albert Bartlett with him. Hollow Games just looks a little bit below the mark for me. Really, he's in a rock and a hard place because you can't be going to a Martin Pipe with him. He's going to run in the Bartlett. I wouldn't back him, personally speaking, and the rest of them. I was quite sweet on Eric Bloodaxe, who put in one of the worst rounds of jumping I've ever seen. He jumped well down in Limerick, and he jumped like an absolute dog around Leopardstown. So probably more questions than answers coming out of that race. Probably wouldn't be in a great rush to take that form to the well either.
No, I don't think I would be either. The following race was the 2-mile Spring Juvenile, the Racing TV Spring Juvenile, and Vauban was successful. He beat Fil Dor. It's done some damage to my Ante Post, and I think now both Vauban and Pied Piper have improved since that maiden hurdle at Punchestown, and it was a very good maiden hurdle. The one thing I'd say about Vauban is I'm not sure he did a lot when he hit the front. I struggle to see where Fil Dor will reverse that form unless it came up soft, worse than soft, which is very unlikely for a Triumph hurdle. I think it'll be tricky. He probably wants an end-to-end gallop on soft ground to be competitive, and I wouldn't want to completely rule him out, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle. Can you see a world where Fil Dor reverses that form, and what conditions do they have to have, or does he have to do just that?
I think it would have to be softer ground, as you alluded to. Look, Vauban, I was very snippy about him last week in our preview video, and I kind of said that I needed to be proving it, because at the time his reputation was a lot more than what he'd actually achieved on the track, and I think he's put in a really serious performance here. He's quickened up like a very good horse and put it to bed very impressively. Rightly so, right at the top of the Triumph hurdle market now. I think there's been a gross overreaction to Fil Dor's price, though. He's gone well out now to around 7-1, which I just don't think is correct, given he's done an awful lot right this year. You know he's going to take in the prelims at Cheltenham very well as juveniles go, and just if you get that softer ground, I thought Fil Dor ran the way he ran maybe at Fairyhouse when he beat Lunar Power a length and a half. I thought that's how he ran on the weekend, and I think more so what he showed at Down Royal and Christmas is more so his best. He's got an awful lot to do, because Vauban could well come forward for that performance more, but I think just there's been a little bit of an overreaction maybe to the drift out in price about the grey horse.
Out of curiosity, with Pied Piper and Vauban, would you fancy Pied Piper to confirm the form with him? Very
hard to know, Josh. Obviously Pied Piper's gone over to Cheltenham, and I do like the fact that he's now got course and distance form. Vauban was really impressive on the weekend. Maybe just Vauban, but I think it'll be very close between the two of them.
Now here's a question. Would Riviere de Tel have won the Irish Arkle had she jumped well at the last?
Yeah, I think she would have. I think she would have really. You know, she looked to be a length clear. Don't think Blue Lord had an awful lot in the tank. The final 50-100 yards would have indicated that. Blue Lord, I don't think he was at his best. He was back being a fair bit keen again, and his jumping wasn't maybe quite as polished as has been in his first 2 starts. Riviere de Tel, she's a cracking mare. She keeps fighting every fight, you know, dancing every dance, and is bang there. I'd be a little bit concerned that she, in an Arkle, is she going to come up against another horse? You know, is it just going to be one of these ones, not dissimilar to Fakir Duderie when he was an Arkle horse? He just kept coming second and kept running really well, but always something ahead of her, and I'd be afeared that might happen at Cheltenham again.
How do you read that race going towards the Arkle?
I think Blue Lord's a bit better than he showed on the weekend. I think he could settle an awful lot better. I think the way the race is going to be run at Cheltenham is going to be very interesting. I think St Sam was a bit sacrificed almost in a lot of respects, you know, out in front. I thought he ran a mighty race. And obviously if they go that sort of clip, it does have to say, and I wouldn't be plunging in on English horses, but the way the race is going to be run is going to suit Edwardstone. Now, you'd have to have massive issues maybe about Edwardstone's jumping, maybe certainly about Alan King's stable form at the moment. You can't buy a winner. But the race is going to be run to suit, so there's not going to be much excuses for him coming from behind.
Is there much of a difference between Blue Lord, Riviere de Tel, Edwardstone and Third Time Lucky?
Well, you've snuck Third Time Lucky into that argument. I don't know why you've done that. I would say Blue Lord and Riviere de Tel, I would be fancying that form more so than the English horses, but I don't think there's a catastrophic amount between them.
No, I don't think so either, but I do think Blue Lord will win the Arkle, and 3-1 current price I think is fairly fair. The Irish Gold Cup sprung a bit of a shock with Conflated winning it under Davy Russell. I thought the ride was brilliant. It's not often that you see Davy Russell going early, and he just knew so good. A shock, but I thought Minella finishing second, like many people, it was a brilliant run. He's far from gone out the game, and he's definitely a live chance in the Gold Cup. Can Conflated be competitive at the Cheltenham Festival? Was that his day in the sun, or is the real talking point Minella?
Well, I think it was really pleasing to see Minella put in that type of performance, and good to see Robbie Parr get a good tune out of him as well. Obviously, Connections have decided that Robbie's going to ride the horse because race is going to be on A Plus Tard, and I don't mind that at all. They did that a few years ago with Davy and Noel Feely with Monolith in the RSA. So I get that he ran a very good race. Conflated, I just thought some of the comments afterwards were very interesting. I heard Jack Kennedy say that this Conflated has actually a lot more ability, like natural ability, than Galvin does. Now, but you'd have Galvin as being an awful lot more solid and more likely to run his races, for this Conflated kind of could do anything. A very quirky horse.
Do you think that's because Jack Kennedy fancies the ride on Conflated in the Gold Cup over Delta Work? I'd find it very hard to imagine Davy's going to get off Galvin.
No, Davy's not going to get off Galvin. I'd be very shocked if he did. And to be honest, like they're wasting their time. They're wasting £1,000 if they enter Delta Work in the Gold Cup. And I've been one of his biggest fans. But that horse, I don't know what you do with him. Do you send him over the banks now or something, or do you send him to the National?
You need to send them your bank details so they can forward that grand on instead of entering it.
Exactly. It's just like I don't think he's any chance. I think Connections probably after the weekend would be a fairly in that camp as well. And Conflated, look, he's won the Irish Gold Cup. He's more than entitled to go and run in the Gold Cup. And he's probably got the ability to run well. But the way Connections are speaking would indicate that he's an absolute fruitcake. So I'm not sure maybe one of the most trustworthy.
The one race I was most excited about on Saturday was the Bumper. And it lived up to expectation because the winner looked seriously good. Go on, talk to me. This
horse is top of the bus. Absolutely top of the bus. And you just look at the horses in behind. Like, these are fair horses. And I know I've banged the Xander drum. I would be very, very happy to say I think Xander Clegane would finish in the top 4 in the Champion Bumper. And this horse has made him look like a tree. Xander's 8 lengths clear of the Crawford horse that won it there, the Elliott horse that was well fancied, Big Doyen nowhere, and he was doing a half speed turning in. Like, I know they seem quite sweet on this Redemption Day as well, which might be a bit frightening as to how good he might be as well, but American Mike is going to have to spread wings if he wants to beat this horse, because I thought he was absolutely superb. I
thought American Mike had a good form boost with the second of his last run, finishing quite close in the Mare's Bumper. That was a good run. I think he beat her 17 lengths. I know they're trained by different trainers, but it's almost Sir Gerhard and Kilcrut again. And I made the mistake last year of going off Sir Gerhard, going on to Kilcrut, and I was punished. I said American Mike before, but he's Facile Vega's done everything so well. And it does get you giddy when you see these young horses. I think further down the line, I know it's very premature to talk about next year's festival, but Sandor Clegane could be a seriously good 2.5 mile novice hurdler, I feel. And I also think that American Mike would probably be more of a stayer, whether this lad, Facile Vega, I think would be a supreme novice hurdle horse. I can't split them. I cannot split them at all. Maybe at the prices. Do you think even money for the Champion Bumper is skinny?
Any horse, even no matter what he's done, especially when you're going to come up against an American Mike, maybe Mercury, maybe Redemption Day, even money's going to be skimpy 5 weeks out. He's the worthy favourite, but as you say, like, you thought American Mike was on the floor, and then the horse that he's beaten a furlong at Navan has been touched off a nostril in the mare's bumper, so he's beating good horses as well and beating them silly, so he could well be just as good. You wouldn't know where he'd have finished in that race on Saturday, but he's going to have to be some fair horse to beat Facile Vega. And interesting you say that about Xander Clegane. I would love somebody to give me a price for him rocking up in the Nathaniel Lacey race at the Dublin Racing Festival next year. The good old latest exhibition race of years gone by. I'd love to see him. I genuinely think he's still a Grade 1 horse, but it probably goes to show you how good the winner is.
Just to let you know, it is 7:21, Monday the 7th of February 2022. If he wins that race next year, I just wanted to say that time just for a Twitter clip down the line. I'm thinking that far ahead. Galopin Des Champs, you were there in person. I thought, and I don't think many people have mentioned it, but he jumped out to his right, not violently, but slightly out to his right, and he wasn't particularly fluent down the back. He was also very brave. I didn't think it was the best jumping performance, and I said on Twitter that it wasn't perfect, and there was a few comments in there saying like he didn't jump badly, and he didn't jump badly, but the standard that he set on his debut was outrageous, and it wasn't as good as that jumping wise. Willie Mullins after the race then said that he was taken out of his comfort zone down the back. When he went slower the last day and he could dictate, he jumped better. I think that's a hint already. I think they want to go slower. And I know that you tweeted, why go up in trip? And I understand, he's been very impressive. I think taking on Brave Man's Game is a much easier job than Bob Ollinger. Brave Man's Game is still a brilliant horse. Looking forward to seeing him at the weekend. I would still just get the hint that he's going to go up in trip. What about you? Yeah,
no, that was an interesting comment, and I see people have put two and two together with that. I don't know, obviously Ruby Walsh has muddied the waters completely before the race with all his comments about why would you go up in trip, and I don't know whether he's playing into the Mullins bingo in that regard. I thought he was super. I thought it was a really well run race. I'm not a times man, but it seemed that to the naked eye. All the right horses in behind, personally speaking. Master McShee's ran an excellent race. He's a legend of a horse, and it was great to see. Over in England, it's a done thing a lot of the time that you'd clap in the second horse. Over in Ireland, the second never gets a clap. But when Master McShee came back in, there was an enormous reception for him, which is great because it's a local man with a local horse, and he ran a very good race. But this winner's very, very good, and I don't know, I think he'd win either. I'd back him in the 2.5 mile race, I'd back him in the 3 mile race. I think he's class, and I know he was bold, he was maybe a little bit too bold on occasions, but you prefer him being bold than going into the roots and clouting them, so I think he's a fantastic horse, and I'd be very envious of your 25-1 slip.
Yeah, the slip does look nice, and he is a serious horse, but I'm going to say something that might shock you. I think Bob Ollinger beat him over 2.5 miles at Cheltenham, especially if the ground's quick.
Yeah, I can see that. I'd want to see a few more positive signs from Henry's stable than what we're seeing at the moment, because I think Bob was at 90% at Punchestown. I don't think that was the full Big Bob that we're used to seeing. I don't think we've seen the Big Bob this year, really. We haven't seen what he was able to do in the Ballymore. So if he got back to what he did in the Ballymore last year, I can completely understand, but it'd be some burn up between those two horses because they're proper Grade 1 horses.
The one thing that Galopin Des Champs would have to do over 2.5 miles, he's going to have to make it a serious stamina test because they know he stays. So he's always going to have to probably ride him a bit like an Allaho, go forward, not miss a beat. But if he makes a mistake, he just simply can't afford to make a mistake when you've got horses like Bob Ollinger in behind, who's not an assured jumper, but has got so much ability. And I'd almost prefer him to go for 2.5 miles just so we can get that spectacle. And I'd also be interested to see what handicap mark Gaillard de Menil would get, and if they would be tempted by a handicap. He's had 3 runs now, good chases, he's not won any of them, might be in the 140s. I want to get your take on Chacun Pour Soi, because after the race, Willie Mullins said, I think it is best he could beat Shishkin and Energamine. Do you agree with that? Was he that good at the weekend?
It was just good to see him back. I don't think he achieved anything that he hasn't achieved before at Leopardstown. I would be of the way Willie Mullins is talking. I'd be very much in that favour if the champion chase was run at Leopardstown over 2 mile 1 furlong, like all these races are. Again, an out there statement. I think he would beat an Ergamine. I think he would beat Shishkin over that course and distance. I don't think he's going to beat them at Cheltenham.
The one thing that's interesting is obviously the travel issue. The two-time Chacun Pour Soi has been over to England. He's underperformed. Maybe they could bring him over a week earlier to try and combat that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll do everything they can. They'll fiddle around with different things. I see Willie Mullins was alluding to the fact that he was sending him to Leopardstown on the weekend kind of undercooked, because if you get him 100%, he may have left his mark at home, and that's a very interesting ploy. I'm sure they'll be doing the same with that again. They'll try everything they can, and probably the likes of a Danny Mullins or Brian Cooper would ride him, I'd assume, the champion chase. I'd be with you. There's no way in hell Townend's going to get off on Ergamine, but at his best, like if he was to replicate what he does at Leopardstown at Cheltenham, on an off chance, he'd be bang there. But can you trust that? Probably not.
Honeysuckle is a horse that you can trust, though. 14 runs under rules, 14 wins. I'd imagine the crowd was just electric.
Yeah, enormous. You got an enormous cheer down to the start, which I've never seen before. Obviously, she won the race pretty easy, and then it was an enormous reception coming back in. Not quite Faugheen 2020 at Leopardstown level, but not far short. Just a notch below that. Look, she's absolutely super. I don't think she was at her best on Sunday, actually. I thought there wasn't maybe that much in the tank, but she's won by 6.5 lengths, so she's just so far better than these horses. It's not funny. I just really hope next year, whether it isn't appreciated, whether it is a John Bon or something just comes out and properly challenges her. No disrespect to the likes of Azana here, who I would adore to own, but he's just not up to beating Honeysuckle over 2 miles. So, we don't have actual challengers. And I think, I know very hard to compare generations and all that, but if she ran the way she ran on Sunday against, a peak hurricane fly around Leopardstown, she'd have been beaten on Sunday, in my eyes. I don't think she was at her best. But at Cheltenham last year, she was brilliant. Henry's form, if they turn around, there's no way she's getting beat.
No, there is no way she's going to get beat if she stays on her 2 feet and performs 2 feet, 4, and performs well. I think Zana here is a shoo-in for the entry hurdle, 2.5 miles in the spring. I think that's his race. I think they might even miss the champion hurdle or treat the champion hurdle as a prep for Aintree. The following race was over course and distance, so Gerhard actually 3.5 seconds quicker than Honeysuckle. And he wasn't brilliant in the jumping department, but that just shows how good of a horse he is. I think they're going to go up in trip with Sir Gerhard. It sounded to me in the interview after that when Willie Mullins was asked, he said no decision is going to be made yet, but we'll probably go for the easier race, the easier option, as he likes to do with his horses. And you look at the Supreme and you look at the Ballymore, and there is quite a stark difference in opposition. At the start of the season, it's important to note Willie Mullins said that he'd be a Ballymore horse. Do you agree?
I think he's the more likely of the two to go up in trip. The only thing that would throw a spanner in the works there is if one of them picked up a knock. If Dusart Dynamo was suddenly out or something like that, I think they would go to 2 miles with Sir Gerhard. But I can see him doing exactly what Faugheen did in the Ballymore a number of years ago and stacking them up in front, not even jumping that well, and turning the taps on and cooking them, really. I think he's a super horse. As you said, sir, he was, poor enough in the jumping stakes, if we call a spade, and was super, absolutely super, and quick as well. 3 Stripe Life is a very good horse. I think he was well tuned up to run well as well. That was the vibe from Gordon, I felt. Colonel Mustard, a horse that has form tied in with John Bon, well beat in third. Other horses, Statuaire, Grade 1 winner, My Mate Mozzie, weren't even in the picture, weren't even turning for home by the time Sir Gerhard had finished the race. I think he is a super horse. The only thing I would say is just correlating from that. If they do send Sir Gerhard up in trip, do you not think that's a tip in itself for Dysart Dynamo in the Supreme? If you're allowing him be your sole representative against 2 of Nicky's proper horses, I think that's a fair angle to how good they think he might be.
Yeah, I agree. I just think Paul Townend would want to ride them both at Cheltenham, and the only way he's going to be able to do that is if they go for separate races. And Willie Mullins doesn't usually, when he's got 2 potential superstars like he has in those 2 horses, doesn't tend to run them against each other. Dysart Dynamo's keen going nature, and Sir Gerhard seems slightly more straightforward. up in trip for him. Look, if he ran in the Supreme, he'd be bang there as well. I'm not saying for any minute that he wouldn't be. It'd be fascinating if all four ran. I just don't think we're going to get that. Let's now move on then to our current Ante Post bets before we answer a few questions and then we put up our final selections. I'm going to quickly run through mine with my thoughts. Galopin Des Champs Festival Novices Chase 25-1, now 6-4. You can't not be happy with that. I think if he runs in the race, he'll win. Glens of Antrim Mares Novice Hurdle at 25, now 14-1. It's unlikely, but if she ran in the race, I wouldn't want to rule it out. Dusart won't be running in the Arkle. I got him at 25-1. That's a dud. Champ in the Stayers Hurdle at 20-1. He's now currently 6-1. Wouldn't want to rule him out. Any of the top six could win that race. Fury Road National Hunt Chase 25-1 now, 14-1. I can't see him running in the race. They're going to run Wild Fred. They won't run two Jigginstown horses. Gars to Sceaux also won't run in the race. He's had a bit of a setback. Envoi at 16-1 for the Ryanair. I think he'll run in the race, and if he was back to his very best, of course he's got a chance. He just looks so far from it. It's hard to see. Benaud is not going hurdling. He won't run in the Triumph Hurdle. Coqolino, we've not seen since his chasing debut. Champion Green in the Boodles at 16-1. He's a live chance. He's now currently 11-1. Concertista in the Mares Chase 4-1. I think she'll win the Mares Chase. She's now 11-4. I actually still think there's a bit of juice in that price. Unpopular, I know. Telmesomethinggirl 10-1 for the Mares Hurdle. Very happy with that. Now 7-2, I think she goes there with the favourites chance. Buddy Rich at 20-1 for the Grand Daniel. Again, I think he goes there with a massive chance. 16-1, I think he'll definitely run the race. And then Fil Dor at 3-1 for the Triumph Hurdle. I was punished there. Now 8-1. Overall, fairly happy. Good live chances in there. And look, if Galopin Des Champs wins at 25-1, I'm in profit, which is all that matters. So hopefully he does go up in trip, and Andrew Blair-White is proven very wrong.
Yep, no worries. There are a few early blows, certainly. My ones from last April haven't lasted the test of time. Great. Gentleman's Game for the RSA didn't go chasing. Doesn't look the same horse this year. Montmoral for the Arkle. Again, it was a punt before Aintree. It was the right price, just the wrong race. Three Stripe Life for the Supreme. Can't see him winning the Supreme 33s. At best, he could sneak a place. Latest exhibition, unfortunately, the Stairs, no good. O'Toole, no good. For the Ballymore, he's going to be kept to smaller things. It does get better, I do, believe me. Dysart Dynamo 25s for the Ballymore. What a price. Whoa, the wrong race. If Paul Townend's watching, do the honourable thing, Paul. Get this horse up in trip. A Jas 10-1 for the cross country. Is a Jas alive? I'm a little bit concerned. I don't think he'll be running either. Now we get into a few good ones. Brandy Love 25 for the Mares Novice. That's potentially my Galopin Des Champs. I think she's got a cracking chance. Gringo de Brel 12-1 any race. Still happy with that, actually. 130 mark he was given in Ireland. Get him in the Martin Pipe, Gordon. Ellie May 8-1 for the Mares Chase. Happy enough with that. Flooring Porter 6-1 for the Stayers Hurdle. Has enhanced his claims staying in his box. El Fabiolo 8-1 any race. Also happy he wasn't running on the weekend. I thought that was an interesting non-runner and late withdrawal. Vera Verto 33s for the Boodles, now 25s. Think she's maybe a little bit up against it. Would want to see her win a race. And she probably does need to win a race to get through into the race. And my pièce de résistance, Bardenstown Lad at 50-1 for the Albert Barton. You can still get 20-1 in a few places. Now, I know people are going to say this bias because I've put it up at 50-1. I think 20-1 is almost one of the best bets you could get at that type of price for the festival at the moment. I cannot understand how he's 20-1. He's ticking every box. John McConnell knows he's got a serious horse, and I think a lot of the horses at the top of the Bartlett are not that good and are worth taking a shot against. And I'd have Bardenstown Lad in at 10 or 12-1 in that race.
Well, we're going to go on to the questions, and one of the questions was from AJ Brown, and he asked, is Bardenstown Lad bringing it home?
As I say, I think at the moment, at the current prices, him at 20-1 is up there with being one of the best each way bets of the festival.
I agree. It hurts me to say it. I think he'll win the Bartlett. For some reason, I just do. He's got Cheltenham form. He was good at the weekend. He'll stay all day. If it's grueling conditions, you'd have no problem with that. I think he ticks a lot of boxes, and you might have a nice one there at 50s. Andy asked, Henry de Bromhead stable form. We mentioned it when talking about the weekend's racing. Is it a worry? To put it into context, he's had 34 runners in the last 14 days, only 3 winners. I'm going to quickly say my piece first. The one thing I would say is his good horses are still running well. The likes of Honeysuckle winning, Minella second, A Plus Tard has had a good year, Bob Ollinger, Telmesomethinggirl. They're not running really below their form, whether I would be worried about the others, like the handicap chances, because those that are away from the top tier don't seem to be performing too well.
Yeah, I'd echo everything you say there. I think come March, I would be backing his horses in grade ones and just thinking that they'll get the job done. It's more so the runs of the likes of a Capucha mix or something, where you're looking like this horse has a good chance and didn't jump well, was beaten miles out, and there's been a fair few horses like that in the handicaps, as you alluded to. Wouldn't be one I'd be ploughing into in the likes of the County Earth and Martin Pipe if he had runners in that, but he's still got good chances. Journey With Me is another horse that defied stable form over Christmas. He's running this weekend. I think that the good horses usually come to the top, and I don't think there's as much of an issue to maybe take those horses on in the big races.
Owen McMahon says, Gordon Elliott novice hurdlers, where are they going to run? Let's quickly fire it through them. Mighty Potter.
Supreme.
I think he'll run the Supreme as well. 3 Stripe Life.
Might try the Ballymore.
I think they will as well. Ginto.
Ballymore.
I agree. Jerry Cologne.
Bartlett.
I agree. Minella Cocooner.
Bartlett.
I agree. And Hollow Games.
I think you have to run them in the Bartlett, but...
Full house, there we go, full house, that's what we think, and I know definitely Mighty Potter will go straight to the Supreme, all being well. Another question from Bailey Fisher. Now this is a tough one. Your nap and your next best currently for the Cheltenham Festival. I'll go Concertista at 11 to 4 in the Mare's Chase. I think she'd beat them all on hurdles form. She jumps economically, it's not spectacular, she's quite low, but if she can get round, I think she'll be bang there. Paul Townend will ride, or potentially Daryl Jacob, and I think she'll have a fantastic chance in the race. And then the other next best would be Buddy Rich at 16 to 1 for the Grand Daniel. I think he'll definitely run in the race. He could be a bit of a chosen mate 2.0. They've looked after him all year. I think they've had a big handicap in mind, and I also think they've had the Grand Daniel in mind. So 16 to 1, like you mentioned with Barnstown Lad, in that kind of price bracket, I'm not sure there's too many better horses you could back for the current Cheltenham Festival than Barnstown Lad and Buddy Rich. Andrew Blair White, a nap for the Cheltenham Festival, the first week of February. Take it away.
Yeah, good old reliable Run Wild Fred National Hunt Chase for me, 7 to 2. I think, as I've said all year, if he runs in the race, he wins the race. It's getting more and more positive, I feel, the vibes I'm getting that he will run. Because Gordon's kind of out of the Trainers' Championship here, and he'd be high up in the weights for the Nationals. I think he'll go there, and I think he'll take an awful lot of beating. And then next best would be, you want your next best to be maybe a bit of a price. I think Barnstown Lad, as I alluded to there, at 20 to 1 is a good each way price.
Then the final question is from Sean Alejandro, great name. Where does Gallant John Joe run at Cheltenham?
Oh, well, I don't think he runs at Cheltenham, unfortunately. I see a lot of people have jumped on the Gallant John Joe bandwagon, and the more the merrier with this horse, because he's such a mercurial horse. The thing is, though, his connections haven't had a runner at Cheltenham for the last dozens of years. Even when they had Follow the Plan, who was a proper grade 1 horse back 10 years ago, he never ran at Cheltenham. So I doubt he'll go over there. I know people are saying him for the plate. I think the most likely thing is at the finale meeting at Leopardstown. I think it's the 6th of March, something like that. There's a big 2 mile 5 handicap chase, 35 grand to the winner. Given his Leopardstown form, given the connections, I would say that would be the most likely place we'll next see him. And other than that, maybe something like a big handicap chase at Fairyhouse or Punchestown. I know a few people are quite coy on him for the Irish National. I wouldn't know whether he'd stay that or not, but he's certainly well weighted, and he will win a handicap of 142, mark my words.
The one thing about him is we had a few comments on the last video when we talked about our LTR caps, saying that if you made a Gallant John Joe cap or a GJJ Army cap, that they would buy it. So let me know down in the comments if you would. That might be something we could sort out. Andrew and the GJJ Army out at Leopardstown on their finale meeting. That would be a sight. I think I'd have to come over for that. Also, I wanted to mention a race I think is worth noting this week, and that's Stirles on Thursday, 2 mile 4 rated novice hurdle. Ash Tree Meadow, Indigo Breeze and Hayo, I don't know how you pronounce it, all trained by Gordon Elliott. I think Gordon Elliott's got the Martin Pipe in mind for all 3 of these. Could be interesting if he runs 2 against each other. You might get a bit of a pecking order there. But now it's time for our final Ante Post bets for the Cheltenham Festival. You've got 4, I've got 3, and that evens it up. We'll have the same amount then. Take it away.
Well, starting off probably with one that there's people, I'm going to have to get people around with, because it's a horse that you've put up, and you've put up at a shorter price, and I was alluding to it earlier about an overreaction. And I just think, especially for each way players, Fil Dor currently at 7 to 1 for the Triumph Hurdle, I think is a smashing price, because I cannot see how he finishes out of the first 3. He's a reliable horse. I know from, I've been to and watched Fil Dor in 3 of his 4 runs. He doesn't get flustered in the parade ring. He's a very relaxed horse, very straightforward horse, jumps well, quickens when you need him to quicken. If it's softer ground, he's got a chance of reversing form, or maybe even beating a Pied Piper, which means he's definitely in the frame. And he is so far better than the English juveniles, who we've alluded to a few times are not up to scratch. I think the first 3 in the market will be the first 3 home. 7 to 1's not a bad price, and just in case, you know, the first 2 in the market don't perform, he's definitely the type of horse that's going to sweep up the breadcrumbs, and I think 7 to 1 is just overpriced in that score, so I'm going to get him in the team. I think he's a reliable horse, and you know what you're going to get.
I look at my 3 to 1 slip and say it was a dreadful slip now at 3 to 1. Would I be in a rush to back him again at 7s? I'm not sure. I think it's an uphill task, and I think Pied Piper and Vauban might be better than him. I think I'll go with my first one then, and it's in the Pertemps, and we've not seen him since October, but he is trained by Gordon Elliott. Tullybeg, 20 to 1. I think he's well. He went over to Cheltenham in October, finished 5th in the qualifier. We've not seen him since. I think they want to preserve his mark. He ran off 140 that day. I'd imagine if he's going to be put up or go down, he might go down 1. Very unlikely. I think he'll most likely be running off 140. I think he's classy. I think there's a future with him. I think he's well handicapped off 140. He'll definitely get in the race. I'd imagine he'll have either Jack Kennedy or Davy Russell on, and he ticks a lot of boxes. So Tullybeg, and he travelled so well. Go back and watch that race in October. He travelled brilliantly.
Yeah, another horse I've kind of hinted at. I know I hinted at a much bigger price earlier in the season, and I was disappointed I didn't get her in at the massive price. But I think they've nudged out Heaven Help Us a few points after a run in the Irish Champion Hurdle. She's now 12 to 1 for the Mares Hurdle. This has been the plan all along. I think actually her run in the Irish Champion Hurdle was full of credit. She would want to sharpen up her jumping, but she was electric round Cheltenham last year in the Coral Cup with the cheek pieces on. I think a nicer bit of ground. She's won over course and distance. I had great luck last year with backing a horse that went from the Coral Cup to the Mares Hurdle in Black Tears. I'm hoping the same with Heaven Help Us. I don't think the mares are brilliant. I think they're a good lot, but I don't think they're brilliant. I think Royal Kahala is by far the most talented of them, but she's not going to get her ground. And I don't know what you're going to do with Royal Kahala. I think she's the best of them, but I wouldn't back her for the Mares Hurdle. Telmesomethinggirl I think has got a very good chance, but I don't think she's a world beater. Heaven Help Us at 12 to 1, that's almost 3 times the price. And I think she's got a very good chance if she turns up in that form she was in last March.
I mentioned it in the comments of the last video. When you buy an LTR cap, you'll also have an invitation to a private Cheltenham preview evening that we're going to do, probably on Skype or Zoom or something like that. Me and Andrew. My next one would be, and this is interesting, it's in the Ballymore. He's 4 to 1, and it's Sir Gerhard. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I think he'll run in the race, and if he runs in the race, I can't see him being any bigger than 6 to 4 on the day. I think he'd stay. He has plenty of speed. I think he'd suit the race, he'd settle. Like you say, he could go on the front end, build them up behind him, and go again. And I think Sir Gerhard at 4 to 1, if he runs in the race, it's a punt. Look, he could run in the Supreme, but I'm going to nail my colours down to the Ballymore for Sir Gerhard.
Yeah, and my last 2, I'm going to throw a few Hail Marys into the mix, because we need that in anti-post betting.
We do.
Need a few at bigger prices for the handicaps, and 2, I think will run in their respective races. 1 in the Kim Muir. I know there's been a bit of talk for Frontal Assault, Tory Graph for Gordon Elliott. I think he's got 1 lurking in there in the shape of Smoking Gun. Formerly owned by Gigginstown, not anymore though. He won the Porterstown earlier this year, beating the Dabbler under Dennis O'Regan, and was pulled up in the Thyestes. Now, I don't want to criticise and say anything, but it was an interesting ride, interesting race. If you want to go look back, and you'll probably know what I mean. He jumped super, and yet kind of every time he made ground, he was restrained. He's running on Wednesday, which I'm led to believe is just meant to be a prep run. He's off 138, so actually I don't want him to run well on Wednesday, because if he runs well, he'll go up in the weights and he probably won't get in under the ceiling of 145. But if he does run an okay race, stays off 138, gets into the Kinmure, 25 to 1, get a good amateur like Barry O'Neill up on him, I think he's got a very good chance.
I'm actually going to add one. I remember there is one that I did want to put up, but my third one is Noble Yeats at 9 to 1 with Sky to win any race at the festival. It was a very encouraging second behind a Hoist in Europe. Wetherby the other day, I think he could go for the plate. He's 25 to 1 in places for that race. It might be worth, if you're confident that he'll run there, taking that price. And then quickly before your last one, Call Me Lord in the Coral Cup. He's 40 to 1. It's an outside chance, but he's so far down the weights. He ran in a champion hurdle not so long ago, a couple of years ago. I think he's a good horse. I think 2.5 miles would be perfect, and he ran well in the Lanzarote. So 40 to 1, I'm willing to take that risk. It's a big punt, and as you say, big prices are what we're after on this show. So Call Me Lord at 40 to 1 for the Coral Cup.
Yeah, I know you've been keen on that horse. My last one, look, again, it very much, I've no idea whether this horse will run in this race, but based off the form line we've seen with Pied Piper and Vauban in the Punchestown Maiden Hurdle, you only have to look back to third to see a horse called HMS Seahorse, who then finished second to the Tide Turns next time out, who then ran a creditable race. And I know some people like the Tide Turns for the Boodles, and rightly so, but HMS Seahorse maybe could be a Boodles horse. He's also running on Wednesday at Fairyhouse in a maiden hurdle, which would be his third run and would qualify him for the race. I hope he wins on Wednesday, and I hope if he does go and win, he will run in the Boodles. He was an 86 rated horse on the flat for Aidan O'Brien. He's taken to jumping very nicely. 20 to 1, big field. I know there's a lot of questions out there. I'm not convinced he will run, but if he does, he has the ability, and he's the type of horse that has the profile to run well in the race like that. As I say, hopefully he can run very well on Wednesday and get himself into that race and give ourselves a live chance.
There we go. Looking forward to the Cheltenham Festival. That's the last of our Ante Post series. Thank you very much for all the support over the year that we've done it. It's been a long time since we've been building up to this, but I cannot wait. We're not too far away now. Hit that like button if you did enjoy it, and let us know your best. Let us know your nap and next best for the Cheltenham Festival. If we were to run it right now, do get those down in the comments. We look forward to reading those. And later down the line this week, we'll be doing a very Cheltenham specific video, so you've got that to look forward to as well. But until then, we'll see you soon.